I should probably admit something before I get too far into this. A few months back, I went down to the basement on autopilot to clear out an old cedar trunk. It had been sitting there in the dark for years. I grabbed a pry bar and started tearing through it like another weekend chore, wanting to just tick it off my list. I yanked out an old tackle box, a stack of tax returns, and then I saw this small cardboard box wrapped in packing tape. I didn't even pause. I just jammed the box cutter through the top. Inside were dozens of loose photos from when my oldest boy was learning to walk. Because I was rushing, moving too fast on pure routine, the blade slipped. It sliced right through a picture of him sitting on his grandfather's shoulders at the county fair. It was a clean tear right across his small face. I stood there in the damp basement, listening to the hum of the water heater, feeling like a complete moron. I wasn't actually there. You think you were saving time by rushing through these tasks, but you were actually just tearing the pages right out of your own life. Once you understand why that happens, you can actually start slowing it down. Lately, I have been thinking a lot about how time changes once you cross over 40. It is a strange, disorienting thing. If you're watching this right now, chances are you know exactly what I am talking about. By the time we finish our talk today, you are going to understand exactly why time feels like it is slipping through your fingers. And more importantly, how you can actually slow the whole thing down. Not by doing anything radical, but by changing how you look at a regular Tuesday morning. When you're 20, the years feel like long stretches of wide open highway. You can look out and see the horizon miles ahead of you. You've got all this pavement to burn, and you don't care how fast you are going. But somewhere in midlife, the road bends. It happens quietly. Suddenly, time starts doing this weird trick. The days drag, but the years fly. Think about it. You wake up on a Tuesday morning, and the day feels endless. You look at the clock on the wall, and it feels like it is stuck. You drag yourself through the work, the chores, the commute. But then you blink, and somehow it is October again. You swear you just took down the Christmas tree. You feel like you just got back from that summer trip. Yet the calendar keeps sprinting forward like it is in some kind of Olympic event you never signed up for. It is a strange paradox, isn't it? The days can feel incredibly long. The routine, the responsibilities, the same morning coffee from the same pot, driving the exact same route to work, turning the wheel at the exact same corners. You glance at a photo of your kid from 3 years ago, and it hits you like a physical blow. When did they get so grown up? Where did those 36 months go? Psychologists call this the time compression effect. When your life becomes predictable, your brain stops recording it in detail. Fewer memories mean less to look back on, and that makes time feel like it is disappearing. Think back to when you were young. Everything was new. You were collecting firsts like trading cards, the first day at a new school, meeting new friends, your first real job, holding that physical paycheck in your hand, your first apartment with mismatched furniture and a leaking sink, even that first real heartbreak that made you question everything around you. Each of those experiences got its own vivid folder in your memory. Your brain recorded everything. The smell of the old car upholstery, the sound of the rain on the window, the heavy emotional bookmarks. But in midlife, let's be honest with ourselves. Much of what we do every single day is completely familiar and predictable. The days blur together, and the years quietly evaporate in the background,
while we are busy looking somewhere else. We know exactly how our favorite coffee tastes, which means a very specific thing. We are no longer really tasting it. We are just consuming it on autopilot, while our mind is worrying about bills or the leaky gutter out back. There is also a simple mathematical element at play here, and it is worth looking at directly. When you are a 10-year-old boy, one single year represents 10% of your entire existence on this earth. That is a massive chunk of your life. It feels like an eternity, because proportionally, it is. But when you hit 40, that exact same year is only 2.5% of your total life. That's why a year feels smaller, because it literally is a smaller fraction of everything you've already lived. The years that once loomed large, like giant mountain peaks on the horizon, now slip by like telephone poles on a highway. You see them individually distinct when they are right up close, but they quickly blur into a single continuous stream as you speed along. At some point, time stops feeling like something you spend and starts feeling like something you are running out of.
You start noticing the patterns, the seasons just repeating themselves over and over. The same holidays, the same songs on the radio, the same social media memories popping up on your phone to show you exactly who you were 1 year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. It is like watching a loop of your own life play out. It can feel comforting, sure. But if we are being completely honest, it is also a little bit haunting. You can feel the heavy tug of nostalgia and the sudden awareness of mortality in the exact same breath. Time becomes both a quiet friend and a rival. It gives you perspective that you didn't have when you were 25, but it also reminds you that the clock is ticking. And it is ticking much louder than it ever did before. You start doing the math you never would have dared to do in your younger days. You sit on the porch and think, if I am 45 right now, and I live to be 80, that is only 35 years left. Only 35 summers. 35 chances to watch the leaves turn gold in October. 35 opportunities to get it right, whatever that it happens to be for you. That awareness can feel heavy. It can sit on your chest when you wake up at 3 a.m., but it also carries a strange, unexpected gift. Midlife is when we finally understand, deep in our bones, that silence isn't just empty space, and time isn't infinite. And that understanding, as uncomfortable as it is, can be the very thing that wakes us up from our sleepwalk. We start asking completely different questions. We stop asking, what do I want to be when I grow up? Instead, we ask, what do I want the rest of my life to feel like? And we stop worrying about how to impress everyone around us. We start asking, what actually matters to me beneath all this noise? And here is the part most people completely miss. You are not powerless in this weird time warp. You don't just have to sit there and watch the clock run down. The trick is to break the routine on purpose. New experiences are what slow time down again. It could be a weekend trip somewhere you have never set foot before. Picking up a hobby you have postponed for a decade. Saying yes to something that feels mildly terrifying, like trying to learn a new language or signing up for a class where you don't know a single soul. Novelty is the direct antidote to the blur of time. When you fill your days with newness, your brain starts recording again.
It opens up those new folders. Suddenly, the years stretch back out a little bit. Think about the last time you traveled somewhere completely unfamiliar, even if it was just 2 towns over for a weekend. Didn't those few days feel longer than entire months spent sitting at home? That is because your brain was actively engaged. It was cataloging new sights, new sounds, new experiences. It was fully awake. But here is the thing we need to understand. Novelty doesn't mean you have to book an expensive flight to Bali or go out and buy a saxophone you will never play. It can be much smaller than that. It can be accessible.
A couple of months ago, I forced myself to take a completely different walking route through my own neighborhood, down a gravel alleyway I always pass by. It was a tiny change, but I noticed old cedar fences, a couple of classic trucks tucked away in carports, and it honestly felt like I was in a completely different city. Try cooking a cuisine you have never even tasted before. Strike up a real conversation with someone completely outside your usual social circle. Read a book in a genre you typically avoid like the plague. The goal here isn't to completely overhaul your entire life or throw away your stability. It is just to punctuate the routine with small moments that make your brain sit up, look around, and pay attention. Maybe that is what the second half of life is actually about. Not trying to stop time, but learning to feel it again. Sometimes that means changing what you do. Sometimes it means changing where you do it. Not racing against the clock like we are trying to win a sprint, but walking right alongside it with real intention. There is also something to be said for rituals, as long as they don't become mindless habits. A ritual that you perform consciously, whether it is a quiet Sunday morning walk in the woods, a weekly phone call with an old friend from high school, or an annual tradition with your family, can actually anchor time rather than blur it. The key is presence. Are you just going through the motions, or are you genuinely there in the room? One of the strangest shifts in midlife is realizing you are finally allowed to slow down. For decades, we are conditioned by everything around us to speed up, achieve more, climb higher up the ladder, accumulate things faster. But somewhere around 40 or 50, a lot of men start questioning that entire framework. We look at the tools in our hands and wonder what we are actually building. What if productivity isn't the point of all this? What if the real goal isn't to cram more tasks into each day, but to experience each day more fully? This realization can feel radical. It can feel almost rebellious in a culture that is completely obsessed with optimization, with doing more in less time. But midlife whispers a different truth to us if we are willing to listen. Maybe the point isn't to beat time at its own game. Maybe the point is to just stop playing that game entirely. This doesn't mean you become lazy. It doesn't mean you check out or stop caring about your responsibilities. It just means being highly selective. It means protecting your attention like the precious, limited resource it is. It means saying a firm no to things that don't genuinely matter, so you can have the space to say yes to the things that do. I know a man who quit a very high-paying job at 52 years old. He realized he had spent 20 years sitting in meetings that didn't matter, working on projects he didn't care about, trying to impress people whose opinions meant absolutely nothing to him. He took a massive pay cut, started doing some basic freelancing, and now he spends his afternoons working in his garden. He told me recently that time feels completely different now. Slower. More his. Now,
That is not everyone's path. Obviously, we all have bills to pay and families to take care of. But it illustrates something important. When you stop trying to outrun time, you can actually start living inside of it.
Talk to anyone our age, and they will tell you the exact same thing. The years picked up speed. The kids seemed to grow up overnight while we were working, and the wrinkles appeared around our eyes while we weren't looking. The career that once stretched endlessly ahead of us is now clearly moving into its third act. But maybe time isn't racing ahead without us. Maybe it is just nudging us, reminding us to look up from the calendar, reminding us to make something out of this specific day, however ordinary it seems on the surface, to notice the way the morning sunlight hits the kitchen counter, or how your kid laughs from the next room, or the particular shade of gold the trees turn in early October. Because the truth is, time doesn't actually move faster. We just stop noticing it. And the very moment we start noticing it again, that is exactly when it slows down. Children understand this naturally, without anyone teaching them. They are experts at being present. They can examine a single leaf for minutes, finding complete wonder in the ordinary. Somewhere along the way, we lose that capacity. Not because we grow up, but because we get busy, distracted, overwhelmed by the weight of everything we are carrying. Midlife offers us a rare chance to reclaim it. There is a beautiful irony here. The very thing that makes us anxious about time, the sudden, sharp awareness that it is limited, is the exact thing that can help us experience it more richly. Scarcity creates value. When we understand that our time is finite, we can finally stop wasting it on things that don't matter to us. You can't control how fast the years pass. That clock is going to keep ticking no matter what you do. But you can control how deeply you live inside them. So stretch time by doing something new. Mark the moments. Pay attention. The calendar may be sprinting, but you can still choose to walk slowly through your own life. Start small. Today, notice one thing in your house or your yard that you usually look right past. Tomorrow, try one small thing you haven't done before. This week, have one conversation with your spouse or your friend that goes a little bit deeper than usual. This month, create one distinct memory worth keeping. The weird relationship we have with time in midlife isn't a problem we need to solve. It is just something we have to learn to dance with. Yes, the pace has changed. Yes, there is less road ahead of us than there is behind us. But that just means we finally know what we are driving toward. And maybe, just maybe, that is when the journey actually gets interesting. Responsibility to yourself means recognizing that the real enemy is distraction, autopilot, the deep numbness that comes from doing the exact same thing the exact same way for so long that you forget you are even alive. So break the pattern, take the trip, learn the thing, have the conversation. Notice the sunlight on the wood. The clock is ticking either way. The only question is what you do with it. If this kind of perspective is something you want more of, that is exactly what this channel is about. Consider subscribing for more like this. Take care of yourselves out there.